Yes, communication skills. So today we are going to study the unit barriers to communication. Okay, so see, you can see here this image indicate that barriers. So like communication means conversation between two different people. But because of the barrier, these two people cannot interact with each other very nicely. So these barriers, so we'll see what are those barriers, why this happens, and like different examples like gender barrier, female male, they are not easily talking sometimes in professional at professional places. Also ego will come, male ego will be there, and there are physiological barrier, physical barrier, environmental barrier. As you know, in if noise is there or some obstacles are there, you cannot communicate easily. So that we are going to study in this type of barriers to communication. So this image I have put so you will get a clear idea what you are going to learn in barriers to communication. See, one image I put from the image. See, Google specific items that can distort or prevent communication within an organization. Yes, exactly. Some specific items like you are not going to talk to that person because of you feel something or you don't want to talk or some barriers are there, because of that you are not easily communicate with that other person. Okay, so we'll start with the barriers to communication. First is physiological barrier, then physical barriers, then cultural barriers, language barriers, gender barriers, interpersonal barriers, psychological barriers, emotional barriers. So these are barriers to communication. So these are very important. We will see what are the what we can say what comes under the physiological barriers like attention, then physical barriers, then cultural barriers. Everyone is people are staying in different states and different countries, so cultural barrier will come. Language barrier again the same. Always in one country itself there are many languages. So the best example is India, so that will also come for if you want to communicate with any person and you don't know the language. So that is comes under again the language barrier, right? Gender barrier, then gender barrier, then interpersonal barrier, psychological barrier, and emotional barrier. Emotional barrier. Then barriers to communication. The word barrier means obstacle, hindrance, or simply that problem that comes in a way in which transmission of message and it will block the process either completely or partially. Communication is the flow of information. So in the flow of information, if any obstacle will come or hindrance will come, that known as the barriers. Okay, so see, it consists of a message being transmitted by sender to receiver through the specific channel. Hence we can say that communication is a dynamic process which is subjected to breakdown on account of several factors. And so the factors are noise and barriers to communication. So as you know, the noise also there. So noise and barrier also the main factor. Communication barriers are definitely disadvantages in communication. Yes, exactly. Where communication is so important and sending the information from one person to another person. Sorry. Then we'll start with the physiological barrier. It is a form of communication barrier that hampers the communication between listener and speaker. This form of communication barrier challenges both speaker and receiver. So, what are the physiological barriers? Poor listening skills, information overloaded, inattention, emotions, poor retentions. So, these are what the physiological barriers. See, so, as you know, what you have to control in physiological barriers to increase the better performance: memory, alertness, attention, and perception. These are the important factors in the physiological barrier will be overcome with the help of this. Then causes again the speech disorder. Some people are having the speech disorder. Then some people are having the memory problem. some people can't listen, so that is also comes under the physiological barrier. Deafness and hearing impairment, and then what we can say, blindness and vision impairment, poor listening skills, inattention. So all those are the causes of physiological barrier. How to overcome physiological barrier? Right, how to overcome, that is the question. How to overcome? So yes, so you have to be alert, you have to be attentive, then you have to be perception. But you have some perception about something, then you can easily overcome the physiological barrier. Now we will go for the physical barrier. See, physical barriers relate to disturbance in the immediate situation, which can interfere in the course of an effective communication. Some of them are easy to alter, whereas some of may prove to be tough obstacles in the process of effective communication. So that is what the physical barrier. Okay, the physical barrier. Two major physical constraints of effective listening are noise environment and learning impairment. Now, see, here this image says what? He is shouting to that person, but this person is not able to listen. Right? Why? Because some noise are there in background, some plays are there, or what we can say, some loudspeakers are going on. So when this is, we can say this is the first person, this is the second person. When this person is communicating to this person, he is not able to listen carefully because of noise environment, and or sometimes maybe he has listening problem as well. Okay, so that is the thing. You cannot communicate properly. Okay, the next is, see, a minute. Factors causing physical barrier. That is, first, defect in media. First, defect in media means noise will be there. Distraction in environment, yes, that will be there. Then distance, if that person is standing very long distance from you, then he or she can't hear you. Ignorance of the medium, if noise is there, background noise is there, or bird chirping is there, or something else is there, that will obstacle to communicate. So that is the factor of physical barrier. And physical disability, if that person cannot hear you, or he or she has listening problem, then that will comes under the physical barrier. Causes mostly like background noise, then environmental factors, time and distance, distortion, medium disturbance and technical problems. So these are the causes of physical barrier. Now I have given you some insight about the how to overcome that. So first, you should be updated with latest technology. Yes. Then if you have hearing problem, then use hearing aids. In choosing a suitable environment, where noise free environment you have to choose, so easily you can overcome that barrier. Then removing the obstacles, what you have to do, you can easily remove those obstacles. Then making science easier to read, example, you could supplement written science with pictures and visual science. Means you can use the boards and charts. If you are not giving the information orally, then you can use these signboards. Okay, then self motivation, that is also very important to overcome this barrier. Now my favorite one, that is cultural barrier. So this is from different culture, this is, she is from different culture, she is from different, he is from different, and he is from different. So he doesn't know his language, her language, she doesn't know his language, he doesn't know his language, he doesn't know his language. So that is what the cultural barrier, because culture, not about language only, the culture, the different culture thing. Cultural barriers are the challenges to cross cultural communication within an organization. When people from different cultures who might speak different languages, have different cultural beliefs, or use different gestures and symbols to communicate, their cultural differences might become barrier to workplace success. Yes, if consider at one place, the people are staying, the people are working from different what we can say state, and their cultures are different, so they cannot easily communicate with the other person who is having different culture. So that comes under the cultural barrier. Now one more point, say here, cultural provide people way of thinking. Yes, if your culture is different, your way of thinking obviously it will be different. And because of that, the cultural barrier is, see, cultural provide people, wait a minute, no. Culture provide people ways of thinking, ways of seeing, ways of hearing and interpreting the world. Similar words can mean different things to people from different cultures, even when they talk the same language. So that is what the cultural barrier. Factors causing cultural barrier, that is diversified cultural background, language and accent, behavior and nature, religion. Yes, in India that is very so many people are believing in religion, so that also the comes as a cultural barrier. Then behavior and nature, then language and accent and diversified cultural background, that are the factors causing cultural barriers. Now how to overcome that? We can go for the cross cultural environment, means one person can get to know about his culture, then we can overcome that. Then have thorough knowledge of your counterpart's culture background, then conduct effective communication workshop, work in group or run frequent meeting, right? Run frequent meeting means you can try to get to know that person or know his culture, so you can easily communicate, or you can conduct some effective communication workshops so you can overcome that barrier. Now, yes, so this is what language. Language barrier, here you can see that is the, I guess it is a Chinese. This is hello in English. This is bonjour in France, and this is I don't know, maybe Japanese language. So if you are not knowing the language of other country, and then you cannot communicate to other people very easily. Okay, so see, in our world there are very languages, different languages like English, Turkish, Spanish, French, Italian, Swedish, German, Arabic, Japanese, Danish, Chinese, all those different languages are there. So if you are Croatian, Serbian, so if you don't know the languages, you cannot communicate effectively to that particular people and particular person, right? So you have to communicate effectively. You can communicate effectively when you have that knowledge about the language. See the definition. Inability to converse in a language that is known by both the sender and receiver is the greatest barrier to effective communication. When a person uses inappropriate words while conversing or writing, it could lead to misunderstanding between the sender and the receiver. Okay, that is the language barrier. If one person is not getting another person's language, it cannot, he or she cannot speak properly. Factors causing language barrier, that is the multi-language. Because of multi-language, there are multi-languages others. Then region, because of region, if you are not staying there in that particular region, then you cannot speak their language and you cannot communicate effectively with them. Inadequate vocabulary means you are not aware about the words they are using, and interpreting differences, so that interpret differences. Now how to overcome that? This is what very important, how to overcome that. How to overcome that? Speak slowly and clearly, ask for clarification, frequently check for understanding, be specific, choose your medium of communication effectively, and be patient. So these are these are the problems you can overcome, and then these are the solutions you can use for overcoming the language barrier. Now the gender barriers. So this image itself shows gender barrier. Male, these people are looking at her like, why she is here, she don't have that right to give interview, so like that. So this is gender barrier. This barrier arises because men and women have different ways of thinking and communication. Gender barriers, relationship, respect, workplace, authority, and education are common ways men and women are pitted against each other. Overcoming barriers in gender communication is not simple but can be made clear with a little patience. Okay, so this is what image indicate that gender barrier is there. It should not be there if you want to overcome.